Got a little theme music, guys. It's storming outside. So who do you think I went with? It's time for happy hour. Get something in your glass. Storm moving in. Yeah, guys. That he never should have been. Happy Friday. Happy weekend. It's happy hour, guys. And the thunder rolls. I forgot how much I love Garth Brooks. No, I didn't. I just haven't listened to him in a while. And I was motivated as the storm was rolling in about an hour ago. Been blaring this on repeat for like over an hour now. And I'm not sorry about it, guys, because it's Friday, it's the weekend, and it's time for happy hour. Y'all drop into the comments. Y'all know the deal. I want to see who's here. Say hi. Tell me what you're drinking. Let me know where you're at, especially if you're anywhere fun and crazy like a beach. Whoa! Y'all didn't know you were getting karaoke today, did you? What is up, Sarah? Drinking water in San Antonio. Glad you enjoy the song as well. Woo! Alta, happy Friday. Having some Mourvèdre. I love it. Some of the Monday wine. Dig it. And bourbon and diet in Lafayette, Louisiana. Got all them Louisiana folk here with us. We appreciate you. What kind of bourbon are you drinking, Ann? I need to know your bourbon of choice. That's an important question. Doug, happy Friday. In Allen, having some Lost Straw High Plains Sangiovese. Love it. Allen in Sugarland, drinking a Red Rioja from Viña Bosconia. That's a great, I believe, second label of Viña Tondonia. Long time ago, we talked about second labels and really great Tempranillo-based wine there. Love it. Jennifer, good to see you as well. Lynette, flying from Dallas to Atlanta in a hotel room overlooking the Braves Stadium, drinking the Prisoner. That is a big wine. Happy hour, guys. Ken, finishing your beer at the pool. Now searching for wine. I love it. Brian's having Vino Verde. I love it, man. Is it just like crushingly awesome? Sharp, zippy, incredible, refreshing. What's up, Conchetta Williamson, drinking William Chris Rosé in Austin. Cheers. Carol, what is up? Good to see that name. Haven't seen you in forever. Happy hour, Carol. Y'all, this rosé is tasting real tasty, real salty, almost savory rosé. Totally different. Excited to talk about that today. Oh, well, I think it is time for us to jump in because it's Friday and we want to get kicked off for the weekend, don't we? Carla, good to see you as well. Benny Branch Roussan and Bulverde. Love. Guys, it's time to talk about this William Chris wine. Y'all know we featured this a few virtual tastings ago with this crazy label. One of my friends here in Austin, who's a sommelier himself, his name is Chris, came up with this label. Really cool design. Chris Kelly. This is, let me show you on the back label here, Malbec Rosé that we did wild fermentation, unfined, unfiltered. So you'll also notice that you can't really see through it. You can't see my face because it's cloudy. We did not fine or filter it. We actually aged this in Flex Tank. I don't know if we've ever really talked about Flex Tank very much, but Flex Tank breathes similarly to a barrel, but it's actually made of food grade plastic. So you are able to put wine in a breathable oxygen transmitting container to change the texture and flavors of the wine, but without giving any kind of oak influence to the wine. So really cool wine that we did. No added yeast. A lot of times we get to choose the yeast we use for our wines because the winemakers want a very specific end result. Sometimes you can choose not to use the specific yeast you want and let whatever yeast is naturally occurring on the grapes and in the cellar do the fermentation. And that's what we did with this. No added yeast here. Also, sometimes that means it's unpredictable and you don't really know what you're going to get. On the nose, it's a little bit almost like yeasty. If you guys have ever baked bread before, you know the smell of like yeast and like brioche, almost like a sourdough smell. Um, but it also has like a sour cherry, underripe strawberry kind of red fruit thing going on. Mm. Woo, on the palate, it is super tart. Lots of acidity, lots of salivation, super super tart. And salty, guys. For whatever reason, this takes on like a salty note. I compare this always to salty watermelon juice. For me, this is like salty watermelon, raspberry, strawberry juice. Um, Incredible flavor. Um, it's almost like a savory rosé. I really do think this is more like a savory rosé. Um, I love it. I think it's great. It's totally different than any of the other rosés that we do that are more like, you know, sharp and fresh fruited and refreshing. This is like food worthy. And it's actually one of the reasons that we chose to pair it with the Lenoir dinner pack that's going on tonight, that virtual dinner with Chef Todd and Chris. This was one of the wines that we paired. It's such a great food wine because of how savory it is, that kind of a little bit of saltiness almost. I love it. It's incredible. Yeah, if you got the pack, you are in for a treat. This is one of my favorite wines. I always have some at the house. So Mm. Yep. I can't get enough of that. Salty watermelon juice, I think it doesn't really need to go any further. If you want like other kinds of food pairing ideas with this kind of wine, there's this mushroom. So I don't love mushrooms, but every once in a while, mushrooms will just totally shock me by how great they are. But at Bufalina, they do a mushroom pizza with like lemon and ricotta. So it's like a lemon ricotta, kind of like white pizza with mushroom on top. This wine, with its kind of like savory notes and saltiness, and really good acidity to stand up to that lemon, gonna be so 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 good. So that's where I'm headed. You I also always list with this wine like a seared ahi tuna. If you're into the seared ahi tuna thing, this also would be a phenomenal choice with that dish. Cool. Well, guys, it is the end of Portugal week, and we're going to go out on a really high note. So, one of the good things that you get from this episode, this series that we're doing, is how to find wines that punch above their weight class, that are really amazing quality for the dollar, quality for the value. And today we're going to focus specifically on that. You guys are familiar with port wines. You've heard of those before. You guys are familiar with Madeira. You've heard of that before. Many of you are likely to have seen Touriga Nacional based wines from Portugal. They're fairly well known. Today, I want to tell you about 3 other styles of wine from Portugal that are available here in the States. It's pretty easy to find, and incredible value for the quality. And so today, we're going to go over 3 of those to kind of round out the Portugal week. First up, I want to show you the map. Remember, we're nestled next to Spain. Little colored pencil action. Cheers. Happy hour, guys. Mm. Nestled right up into Spain here. The Atlantic Ocean's this big blue blob. So a lot of influence along the coast. But we are going to start. I'm going to zoom in right here, kind of to the north. It's south of Porto. So you see Porto up here at the top. But if you go due south along the coast, you get to this region called Bairrada. Bairrada. I'm probably mispronouncing that a little bit. Bairrada is home to the Baga grape. And that's actually the first kind of wine we're going to talk about today that you need to go look out for. So today is all about the hidden gems of Portugal. I want you to drop into the comments, ask me questions about these things. If you have questions about other things related to Portugal, since we're rounding out today, anything Portuguese related is game here. But I want you to take a look at that little pocket right there that's south of Porto and just inland from the coast, in the Bairrada region. Now, the name of the grape is Baga. It is this region's famous red grape. And now they do make white wine here. So Baga is the name of the grape, and you need to look for red wines from Bairrada or for it to say Baga on the label. So either red Bairrada or Baga will be written on the label. And it is being compared to Piedmont reds like your Barolos and Barbarescos, and in some cases, Burgundy reds, your Pinot Noirs. So you all automatically should know that if those are the two comparisons, we're going to be dealing with elevated acidity, and we're going to be dealing with very light body and light color. Okay, so all those wines, so Nebbiolo-based wines and Pinot Noir-based wines are light in color and high in acid. Now, Baga is overwhelmingly used in bulk wine, but that's not why I'm telling you about it, right? Like, I wouldn't be telling you, like, hey, here's this bulk wine grape you need to pay attention to. I'm telling you about Baga because they make really age-worthy red wines. So, excuse me, back in the day, we're talking like 60s, 70s, Baga was used and still is today a lot in this very cheap entry level wine. Now, in the 80s, there was a guy named Luis Pato, or Luis, that you see his name there, one of the producers I've recommended. Luis Pato in the 80s came in and started pioneering reduced yields. So that already tells you if it's pioneering to do reduced yields, the Baga grape is a very high production grape, high yielding grape. So he came in and started doing reduced yields. He started de-stemming grapes before fermentation. He started aging the wine in French oak, and that helped balance the structure and the flavor and reducing some of those harsh tannins. So this is one of the reasons it's getting compared to the Barolo and Barbaresco wines of Piedmont, is because Baga has very high tannin and very high acid, just like Nebbiolo. So light red color, high acid, high tannin. Nebbiolo, very light red color, high acid, high tannin. So it kind of makes sense why people would start to compare it. That also means it's very age worthy. And usually the thinking has been Baga wines need time. They need time in bottle. They need to age. And you want like 10, 15, 20-year-old Baga wines, and your mind is going to be blown. So the way that they think about these wines in modern day from good producers is aromatic complex reds, well suited for aging, notes of red cherry, plum, red flowers, tobacco, coffee, earthiness, and that all changes over time. This acid and tannin component in the body and the structure of the wine make it incredibly good for food pairing, and specifically for fatty, spiced, roasted meats. So all those big pieces of lamb and those big pieces of beef and those amazing roast duck, all of those wines, the intense red meat that are spiced and roasted and fatty go so well with an intense wine like Baga is, okay? So if you are into the wines of Barolo and Barbaresco, if you are into some of the fresher styles of Burgundy, Pinot Noir, so I would say this is kind of the breakup. Some classic producers are doing it more like Piedmont, the Nebbiolo wines, and some of the young, new agey folks, like his niece. You can see Filipa Pato there is his niece, is Luis Pato's niece, and she's doing a more like modern approach with some of the younger, trendy winemakers that are much fresher and more approachable in their youth. But these wines are incredible. You need to go find Baga red wines from Bairrada. Cool? Love it. All right, that's thing one. Cheers, guys. We made it. Happy hour. Eileen, good to see you. Having a glass of William Chris Laurel Valley 14 Cab. That's a great wine. All right, so that was an awesome red wine you need to go check out. That's a hidden gem for a lot of people still. Luis Pato wines and Baga wines, I know that they're on restaurant. They're going to be probably at a nicer restaurant or a independent specialty wine shop. So Austin Wine Merchant's a good place to look. All right, party people. Thing two, here's a white wine coming at you. If you are a big white wine drinker, and big, I mean full bodied. If you like full bodied white wines, I want you to learn about Encruzado. Let's bring the map back up because we're going to talk about the Dow region. If you guys remember, that's another good place to get red wines. Okay. Now, we actually don't have to go far. So we were right here with Bairrada, right? And we're going to go inland to this little purple blob. This purple blob is the Dow. Okay. So you're going to have a lot less influence from the coast here. It is about 1,100 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. Okay. The grapes grow in granitic mountain soils. And you end up with very ripe Burgundy. It's still, I don't want to compare it to like necessarily New World Chardonnay because it's not oaky, buttery Chardonnay, but it is the more like ripe versions of Chardonnay that get kind of tropical fruit notes sometimes, but still have a really nice line of acidity and minerality. You guys are familiar also with Vermentino. So let's talk about those two. So two fuller bodied white wine styles. Chardonnay, which always makes full body, it's just like how full bodied. Well, this is going to be more like the tropical fruit, rich, ripe fruited ones, but still with good acidity. And then Vermentino, which we've talked about before. Vermentino, for me, I love Vermentino in all its forms. Think it's a great, complex, mineral driven wine. And so this is the Portuguese, almost like sister to those grapes, or brother to those grapes, that you are going to want to go check out. Okay. I think personally, Encruzado is the best white grape in Portugal, period. I think it is making some of the best white wine that you can find coming out of that entire country. And it's not expensive. It's Most producers are going to tell you that like this is the like high end white grape of Portugal. You see some producers there. You don't really need to worry about producer if you find Encruzado. Okay. White wine from the Dow is almost always going to be Encruzado. So it'll either say white wine from the Dow, or it might say the word Encruzado. And you don't have to worry about the producer, because if it makes it to Texas, you want to drink it. It means it's high quality. Okay. You get these voluptuous tropical fruit notes, green papaya, passion fruit, melon. And then because it still has good acidity, it's going to be age worthy. So if you start to get like 7, maybe 6 to 8 years old, you can start to see hazelnut. You can start to see a little bit of vanilla if they used oak. And it is like, honestly, similar to some aged Chardonnays that I've had from Burgundy. Okay. I'm thinking if you are a fan of things like Maine lobster with butter, if you like your risottos like me, even trout, you are going to want to go get Encruzado. This is that bigger, richer white wine that's great with bigger, richer foods. I could really go for a lobster roll with butter right now. In speaking of which, so cheers, guys. There's one red grape and one white grape, and styles that you need to go find to enjoy Portuguese wine at a really low price point and really high quality level. Checking in with a few questions in the comments, guys. Don't forget to drop in if you have questions here. Do you recommend the Rosé Baga wines? Rosé Baga wines are okay. You know, I probably, if I'm going to do a rosé from Portugal, I'm probably going to do like a Vinho Verde rosé. I just think they're like fun and zippy. If you get it from Jennifer, if you get it from a good producer, some of those producers I mentioned, and they're making rosé ones out of it, sure. But I'd stay away from the entry level stuff. That's actually the stuff I talked about where they're making bulk wine and it's low quality and it's overproduced and it's really not worth your time. It will be very not interesting, very, very forgettable. If you want to do a low dollar Portuguese rosé, I probably would stay from Baga. I would go get a rosé Vinho Verde. Get a rosé Vinho Verde, or get a rosé from any of the producers that I'm listing today, because then you know, producer over everything, y'all. This is a little hot tip right here. A lot of people talk about vintage and like, oh, it was a good enough year for me to buy the wine. Doesn't matter. Well, I should say it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much as buying from a good producer. Some people are like, well, what about this style? It's not typical from this region. Like, is it a good producer? Doesn't matter. Producer over everything. Producer over vintage, producer over style. If it's a high quality producer, the wines that they make from that place, from that winery, are going to be quality. So generally speaking, no, I wouldn't drink rosé Baga wines, but I do love the question. And if you can find it from some of the producers I've listed, it's worth a try. And it's probably not that expensive. Cool. Are the Incruzados buttery like some Chardonnays? No, not in my experience. I have not had a buttery Chardonnay. Let's talk for a second about butter in Chardonnay. That comes from a compound called diacetyl. Diacetyl is the same compound that shows up in movie theater butter. There are ways to keep diacetyl from showing up in the wine, in the way that you age the wine, in the way that you make the wine. There are things you can do in the cellar to keep diacetyl at bay. And so while I talk about oaked, big-bodied Chardonnays, and the way that Incruzado is similar in style, I do not want you to think that that means buttery, because Burgundy wines, guys, I hate to break this to you, high-end, really high-quality Burgundy wines are Chardonnays that are oaked, and they sure as heck don't taste like movie theater butter. They're some of the most expensive, enjoyable, complex, incredible, age-worthy white wines in the world, and they ain't got nothing to do with diacetyl. Okay, so I don't want you to think just because I'm talking about oak Chardonnay that we're jumping to the butter, which is why I love this question, Michelle, because I think that this is like what most people believe and think, and so I'm here to help you. I'm here to help clarify that just because you use oak with Chardonnay doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get butter. Now, is that a style that a lot of white wine drinkers, especially California Chardonnay drinkers, do enjoy? It is. It absolutely is, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is a style of wine that a lot of people like to drink, and like you should be able to drink what you want to drink. I would say most of the time in other places of the world, when they're using oak on their white wines, they are not going for the buttery aroma, the buttery flavor. They are trying to give it more texture. A lot of times they like a little bit of spice, a little bit of vanilla note, but it does really well with a fuller bodied white grape. Vermentino is a good example. Um, I love this, Ken. I love buttery Chardonnay and oaky. This conversation is great. I think this is great too, and I don't think there's anything wrong with professing your preferences and love for buttery and oaky Chardonnay. I think some people love it, other people don't. Some people like to make fun of it. There's no place for that. Like, let people like to drink what they like to drink, and that's why wine is so great, because there's so many different styles. But no, to the point of today's conversation with Incruzado, it is not going to be buttery. I have never had a buttery Incruzado. Okay, so now I do want buttery Maine lobster. So yes, like most of the Maine lobster that I've ever been able to have has been buttery, and I want my food that way. Mary's asking a really, really nerdy question. So malolactic fermentation, or MLF, also probably more accurately known as malolactic conversion, is when the malic acid in white wine, well, the malic acid in wine, period, doesn't matter if it's red or white, converts to lactic acid, giving a more creamy texture. Now, diacetyl can be a byproduct of that conversion. So it has the potential to show up more often if wines go through malolactic conversion. So that's why, and that usually happens with white wines you put in oak. Okay, so that's why there is a potential connection here that Mary's pointing out. It's a very smart connection to make. If you put white wines in barrel, good chance it goes through malolactic conversion, which means there's a higher propensity for diacetyl to show up. So, okay, we've talked about buttery white wines enough. I do want to stay in the white wine world. So thing number 3, guys, we're going to talk about a totally different region, which you probably haven't heard of. I think this is probably, of the two, Baga's fairly well known if you're in the like wine nerdery world. Incruzado is also somewhat fairly well known as like the white grape of Portugal. Now, the white wines of Alentejo, I think, are still, even to me, I've probably only had like 2 of them ever, way under the radar, and offer huge potential for value, and you can find them in the States. So let's talk about Alentejo, because we're going to talk about white wine blends from Alentejo. So I need to pull your map back up. So I'll take a drink. This is the last one before the weekend, guys. I'm going to zoom out here so we can get our bearings. All right. Here's the whole of Portugal again. We were up here in Bairrada in the Dow. Okay, that was fairly north in Portugal. Now, I want us to come south and then inland a little bit where all this bright canary yellow is to this region called Alentejo, which kind of runs up against the border with Spain. Okay. Now, if you've ever been to Lisbon, this is directly east inland from Lisbon. So Lisbon's kind of on the coast, and you come inland to Alentejo along the along the coast with Spain, along the border with Spain. Okay, you can see it's a pretty big, like north to south. So there's a lot of variety here because the north and the central and the southern parts of Alentejo are very different. It's kind of like the high plains in Texas are very different than the hill country. So soils are different, temperature and climate is different. So there's a lot of diversity in what they can grow in Alentejo, which is why I'm telling you white wine blends. And they call them in Portuguese Bronco. Bronco is like saying Blanc, like Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Blanc in French. Blanc meaning white, okay? Or in Italian, it's Bianco, right? So when we were talking about it in Portuguese, the word for white is Bronco. So if you see Alentejo Bronco, you know that is a white wine from Alentejo. Okay. Now, if they're going to write Bronco, that usually means it's a blend and they weren't just making a single variety wine, a single varietal bottle. And so they wanted to let you know, hey, it's a Bronco, it's a white wine blend. Here are some of the grapes. I didn't list them because you're really not going to see these on labels anywhere. So I didn't want you to focus on the names of the grapes. But you get things like Arento. Arento is probably the most common. Verdejo, which is similar to Verdejo of Spain, and they say Verdelho in Portuguese. They have a grape called Rupero and a grape called Antauvash. Okay, so 4 white grapes, you're probably not going to hear much of. If you hear of any of them, it's probably Arento. If you're a person who likes dry Chenin Blanc or dry Pinot Blanc or even dry Riesling, not sweet, but dry versions of all these wines, then this is going to be the style of wine for you. So these wines are going to be more light to medium bodied. They're going to be more acid driven. They're going to have very distinct tart flavors and aromas like green apple and lemon. They are going to be great lighter style wines for hot temperatures, and you're going to eat them with lighter foods, things like chicken salad with like green apple and walnuts. This is the, I would say, secret that you need to go seek out for this summer. If you haven't done that with any of the other under the radar stuff I've shared with you, I think this is a great chance to do it. There are a lot of, I don't get into wine ratings a lot, and a lot of people are like, well, it's a 90-point wine, it's a 100-point wine. I don't follow that a ton. Sometimes it can be helpful. I don't think it's the best thing to like make decisions with. But just as an example, there are a lot of white wines from Alentejo that have scored 92, 94, 96 points. And most of us have never heard of them. So they are widely respected in the wine world. They don't cost a lot of money because there's not a lot of recognition in the market right now. And so if you want to be first to market and go find these while you can still afford them at very low prices, go get these white wines. And they are not usually going to see a ton of oak. So they focus on keeping these wines very fresh, very aromatic, and very delicious. Okay. So dry heat is kind of going on in this region. So the Alentejo region, because it's inland, it's not getting the influence from the ocean. Think like the dry heat that we see a lot here. So these are the kinds of wines they want to drink every day. Those are the kinds of wines that we want to drink every day. Cool. So you got Baga red wines from Bairrada, Cruzado white wines from the Dow, and you're going to go get white wine blends, also known as Bronco, from Alentejo. Okay. And there's some producers listed there. Again, don't worry so much about producer with each of these styles of wines I've shared today. Just go get the bottle. If you see the grape or the region and the style, if it showed up here, it's good. Just because these are so under the radar still, if it showed up here, it had to pass some quality tests on its way. Cool. All right. cheers to that. Let's check in with the comments one more time. Man, that's tasting good. All right. Jennifer's asking, can you produce a molecular flow chart of malolactic conversion? I'm a visual learner. Jennifer, I'm going to tease you something. You guys heard yesterday that we are in the works to finally launch William Chris Wine School to our wine club members. If you guys come to wine school, I will get uber stinking nerdy with the conversion of malic acid to lactic acid and even the creation of diacetyl on the scientific level. So here on Happy Hour, we're going to continue to do like the 3 things you need to know, a little more top line level. And if you want to get super nerdy, you need to come to wine school. And we'll get into the nerdiest of nerdy, nitty gritty details with flow charts and diagrams and all the fun stuff, guys. I am over the moon stoked to launch that. And so we're going to talk about that in these 3 things. If you didn't hear yesterday, we're going to be scaling back Happy Hour to once a week so that I can focus on the launch, so that we as a team can focus on the launch of William Chris Wine School in the coming weeks. So a few more questions before we leave. Let's see. Rinda's asking, will we see the names of the bottles in Portugal on the bottles in Portugal? So you're going to see the names usually of the region. And then if it's an individual grape, they will usually list it. They're good about listing because they want Americans and English speakers around the world to buy their wine. They're usually good about putting the grape if it's a single varietal bottling. So if it's like, for example, Baga and Bairrada, they'll usually put that. But you could also see Bairrada red wine. And if it's Bairrada or Bairrada Tinto, Tinto meaning red, okay? If it's a white wine and it's multiple grapes, it's going to say Bronco, okay? But yes, generally speaking, they will put it there. So guys, I hope you learned some good stuff. Veronica's asking, this is a good question. Will Wine School be remote? We are initially going to be launching Wine School online. So yes, we will work eventually also to have classes in person at the winery. Once it's safe and makes sense to do so, that is also in the works. But yes, we are initially launching Wine School online. So you can take it from wherever you are. Ken is saying I was a chem major, so that might be fun. No, it might be. It will be. Guys, I sat through a, I think it was a 3 or 4 hour seminar last year at Texom with a PhD in chemistry, just talking about the chemistry of winemaking and like all the nerdy stuff, like malolactic conversion. That was a big one because a lot of people talk about it as malolactic fermentation. And this chemistry guy was like, no, this isn't fermentation, this is conversion. And let me tell you why. So we'll get super nerdy in wine school with all that kind of stuff. So I answered this. Wine school will not only be in High. You'll be able to take it online because we're going to launch it online. Now, there might be some classes eventually that you'll have to be in person for, but the launch of wine school is going to be online and it's going to be great. All right, so that leads me to these 3 things. So let's talk about that first. So this actually was going to be my thing 2, but since we're already talking about it a lot, let's make it thing 1. We are launching William Chris Wine School. We made that announcement yesterday. We are super stoked. If you want to be a part of the very first crew that gets access to William Chris Wine School, because we are limiting it so we can keep it intimate and one-on-one individualized learning, you need to sign up. So go here at the link in the comments. Okay, and this will give you first access to enroll when enrollment starts. So you're not like, you're not signing up for anything today. You're just signing up to be notified when enrollment goes live for William Chris Wine School. So make sure to get on that notification. We'll be giving updates about William Chris Wine School, prices, class names, all that kind of details, and the opportunity to sign up to all the folks who sign up for that mailing list first. Okay, so go sign up on that list. The real first thing I needed to tell you about, Alan, while I'm putting this in there, my major was business management. I did think about for a little while about a minor in geology, and I do have a pretty extensive math background, so I'm uber nerdy in all the ways, but I was a management major. Number 1, guys, tomorrow, Chris and Catherine are doing a triple vertical of Enchanté, along with some Granite Hill Trebbiano. At the 4 o'clock virtual tasting. You can still get your virtual tasting pack if you haven't already by going to curbside. Make the little road trip out there, buy your 4-pack, join the virtual tasting, 4 o'clock tomorrow. You know it. It's happening. You don't want to miss it. Guys, 3 years side by side of Enchante. I mean, come on. We don't do that. That's going to be incredible. Last and certainly not least, beginning next week, this is a reminder because, you know, like I said, we're going to be pivoting to focus on launching wine school. So starting next week, happy hour will be only every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Cool. So that means after I sign up today, I will see you on Wednesday. Cool. You can get, starting this month, a 4-pack to drink the happy hour wines with me or with us, whoever ends up on camera, likely me, for a 4-pack for $95, guys. That's incredible. Go get it. It's right there at the link. You want to get that pretty soon because we're going to be drinking the first one on Wednesday, and you want to drink the same thing I'm drinking. So go get that 4-pack. You'll have all the happy hour wines for the month of August. I love you guys. This has been great. Enjoy your weekend. Happy weekend. I will see you all on Wednesday. Cheers.